I'm so
Would have
confused.
been a very interesting introduction to going live here.
That will be. What I was gonna say was, I saw this reel where this person ordered for like $3, $20 worth of quarters from Amazon, and she was so confused when they showed up as like stacks of paper so that she could put coins in them. And just listening to her, I was like, oh my God, that's an intro. We're gonna have to help edit that one out, but I really had to share it with people.
Well, this has been quite an intro because I forgot my camera was off and
Hey,
we're live and I'm
There
out
he
of
is.
focus and everything. So, welcome to Triple T. Holy cow. Hello, I'm here. There it is. Yes, that's right. It is a Tuesday night. It is raining like crazy outside right now. So, welcome to Tuesday night Talk Time with TJ, Triple T, number 231 on June 2nd, 2026. It's one of those funky numbers. It's
2:30.
6226 today. Yes. Oh, man, here we are. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions, helping people find the solutions they're looking for. I got an amazing tribe to ask and get help from. So thank you for joining in. We're also, as some of you have noticed, we're live on YouTube. So I get to say, hi, Mom, up in Minnesota. Yeah. And for the rest of you that are watching live or watching the recording, please do all the free YouTube stuff that only costs you a little bit of time, a couple of clickety clicks. Click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when we're back on the air. Click a couple of likes, I'd really help it. Or help it. I'd really like it if you'd help me. And leave some comments. I love seeing the comments, reading comments. Man, I am just off my game tonight. Woohoo! It's been a day. It has been a day. While you're online on YouTube, when you're done watching a few of the videos and leaving all the comments and doing all those YouTube things, I'd appreciate it if you'd swing over and check out my website at www.thettswb.com, thetallskinny-white-boy.com. That is what it stands for, has since way before the internet. So if you find something that TSWB is not saying, Tall Skinny White Boy, don't click on it. That is not me. But on my website, you'll find all sorts of funky stuff that I am privileged to help people with, such as depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief, relationship challenges. I work with clients in sports from beginner all the way up to pro level. I offer corporate coaching, do training on a couple of different things. Got classes specifically for hospitality servers and real estate sales and used car sales because I've been around those industries long enough. So, also, if you know anybody that could use any of my services, please share it with them. Let them know that I offer a free 30-minute consultation. That's right, 30 minutes of my time for no monies. That's your chance to ask me some questions, tell me what's going on, and we'll see if we're a fit. If we are, I promise I'll let you know. If I believe that we are not a good fit, I will let you know and I'll do my best to help you find the person that will be able to help you the best. Breathe. Yes. And another thing that we do here on Triple T since 24, I've got the tie of the week. And this time, no poo on my tie. But I got some bunny.
Some bunny. That was a good one.
So now that we got all that caught up, who's got something cool to share from the last 7 days since we were here? Anybody? Yeah, Mark.
Well, things have been going great, guys. I got another referral today, and we'll see if it pans out. But I without bragging, I think I have the best wife ever. She indulges me, and she bought me a new lawnmower, riding lawnmower for
Oh,
Father's Day. So it arrived today. So she's like, "That's a gift. I'm buying you something so you can mow the lawn." I said, "Yeah, guys, it's a gift. It's a new toy. It's all nice and green. It's in the backyard,
yeah.
you know, and and now I'm in the upper echelon, and of course, the reticular singular complex. I'm driving around Plymouth, and I'm like, every son of a gun is driving a John Deere now. It's like, it's my brain is picking it out of the ether. I'm like, damn, everybody's got a John Deere. I thought that made me special, but yeah, she said, yeah, go pick it out, and I did. So,
Right on.
what a great Father's Day
Yeah,
gift, So,
yeah. It's not quite the same as giving your wife a stationary bicycle or a treadmill. Us guys are a little more like, oh, and it's got exhaust. And anybody else got something to share? Yes? No? Maybe? All right. Well, then I guess we might have to jump to the. Okay.
You made it. Hi, Guillermo.
Hey.
On Saturday, bright and early Eastern Standard Time, I think 5 a.m., I am teaching in the hypnosis group, the Aussie group, Fran's lovely group that meets every other Saturday. So I get to teach on holographic memory resolution. And if anybody's interested, I think most of you guys have the link, or you could just reach out. I think that's all the news that's fit to print.
Cool. All right, then I guess now it's time to jump into the show. For those of you that are joining for the first time or watching the recording for the very first time, this is a 2-hour show. And the first hour, I do my best to get through 3 topics that I've come up with for the night. And after that first hour, we switch gears, and the second hour is open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a topic or ask a question, and I let everybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody else on the call has answered, if I feel that there's still something I can add to it, that's when I throw in my 2 centavos. And makes for a good night. We also find out how quickly 2 hours can fly by. So, that being said, let's get on with the topics of the evening. Tonight is walls, diffuse the bomb, and stuff. Not the stuff you're thinking about, but I appreciate the smiles. Jumping into walls. Walls, oh yes, walls. And everybody, unless you have been living out in the middle of the Sahara under a palm tree, you've been within walls of some sort. But this isn't just about physical walls of the houses and buildings and all that stuff. This is also with the walls that people put up in their mind, in their subconscious, in their lives. The metaphorical walls designed to protect And it's crazy in our industry how many walls people can build and live inside of and have no idea they even exist. Walls around their heart, and walls around growth, and walls around adventure, and walls around, I built these walls to protect me from scary things like goldfish. Wait, what? You find out that they hate goldfish because when they were a kid, they got a pet goldfish and the darn thing jumped out of the bowl in the middle of the night and they found it. Oh, poor Goldie! I'll never love another goldfish like that ever again. I can never have another goldfish. And walls come up. You're like, whoa, what? And as crazy as it sounds, that's how simple some of these walls are constructed. And then, of course, there's the other ones of people surviving horrendous things. And even though they seem justified, they forget to put in exits, a door, a window, something, so that that version of them can see out and check to see if the environment is still as dangerous as it was when they put that wall up. And those are the ones that really, really break my heart, but also make me very happy to be able to help with. I know that I've talked about one of my clients a while back, and to share it vaguely specific, my client had been brutally raped at 17, lost her virginity, and found out he also gave her herpes. Nice guy. Well, after that incident, of course, it would be understandable that she had some issues trusting men. Fast forward to when she finally reached out to Dr. David's office and got to work with me, and she was so lonely that she admitted she was suicidal. And very attractive, but she admitted that when she was out in public, she had no problem with guys approaching her. In fact, that was the double-edged sword, because guys would come up to her all the time, and she would hide behind the wall and blow them off as quickly as possible and rush home and cry because she was lonely. And so during one of the protocols that I've used in these situations, I put her in trance and asked her how big the walls are. And she said, I don't know. And I'm thinking, well, why can't you tell how tall they are? Because they went through the clouds. They were that high. And I said, well, what are they made of? 3-foot thick titanium. No windows, no doors. Concrete floor. Talk about a prison. No wonder she couldn't get to meet anybody. And so I asked her if it would be okay if we could put in a door and a window just to see outside, just to see if there were any scary things left outside. And fast forward, we redesigned the walls into a picket fence with a gate. Not everybody's allowed to come in her area. And instead of concrete floor, we made a real nice lawn and water features and trees and a nice little house, and we didn't waste any of the stuff she'd been through. All of the shice that she had experienced fertilized the property, so everything grew nice. And all the tears she cried watered it and created a beautiful water feature. And when I asked her if she wanted a place to sit, she said yes. And I said, how big of a bench would you like? A bench for 3, because she wanted to have a child. And within a year and a half, she had already done some dating and was able to have her very first orgasm. Late 30s. And we gave her permission that this didn't have to be the person she'd marry. It could be, didn't have to be. But it taught her that not all men were animals, beasts. And within a year and a half, she was pregnant and married. And I just found out a couple of weeks ago she's still married. Baby boy is doing great, growing like a weed. And so I asked her what's changed in her garden. And she said whenever she is out and about, if she sees a tree or a flower or something that she likes, it gets added to her garden. And she still has the picket fence around the property, and that's enough. It's enough for protection. It's not enough to keep the right people out. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies on this so far? Sorry, Mark.
I had a couple of thoughts along the way. One about the walls that we set up for ourselves, and I was working with a client many years ago in the institution, and he was very OCD. He had a lot of rituals, and I conceptualize OCD as like a low wall we build for ourselves, and we do a lot of magical thinking and rituals to stay safe within the wall. But because of the rapport I was able to find with him, I reached in and he was able to step over that low wall. And within a year, he was, a lot of his behaviors had changed. And the annual review, they were like singing my praises. Oh my God, you cured him. I said, no, I didn't. I just made our rituals his rituals. So he didn't spend 2 hours brushing his teeth. He didn't walk in a certain pattern over to the workshop, so he got there with 15 minutes left. He rode the bus. He wore glasses. He was wearing his hearing aid. And they were like, "Oh my God, you've cured him." I said, "I didn't cure anybody. I just made our routines his routines."
Yes.
But I was able to accomplish all that through the rapport I had with him, with the trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also have a magnificent failure that taught me a lot. I was working with this one fella that, with his wife, he kept saying, he had been betrayed by his brother, and you betray me, I can't trust you. So he kept telling me, I can't trust her. I can't trust her. And I said, okay, well, just imagine that trust is a wall. How thick, how big is it? Oh, it's to the sky. Oh, how wide is it? Oh, it goes from horizon to horizon. And I said, okay, well, how thick is it? He goes, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, it's probably really thick. I said, okay, well, just imagine I can, with my, my superpowers, just so that we find out how thick it is, I'm going to transport you to the other side of that wall, and you put your back to it. Okay. So I said, whoosh, and now you're on the other side of the wall. Okay. You're beyond that wall of distrust. Okay. I put your back to it. How's, can you sense how thick? Oh, it's really thick. I said, okay, well, take 3 steps forward. Huh. That distrust is behind you now. And it took for about a week, and then he bounced right back to the other side of that wall. He goes, yeah, that worked great, but no, I can't trust her. I'm like, all right, fine. Thank you for your attention, but I don't see any good outcome because you're not willing to. I got him to the other side of the wall, but he bounced himself right back to the other side. So that was a magnificent failure with that particular client.
I'd say it was, but it wasn't. And I think it would depend on what it was about the other side of the wall that truly made him go back. If it was something that his brother may have done while he was on that side of the wall again. But if it was familiarity or a scared child that was left on the other side of the wall, I've seen those happen as well. Holly.
So a lot of this is going to be kind of, Mark already basically said it, but so first of all, I was going to say with walls, especially when we're trying to help somebody, it is important to recognize sometimes there is a door and there is a key, but if you want the key is rapport. You've got to let somebody know that they're in a safe place, that that give them a good reason to trust you. And then when you're given that key, make sure that you're careful with that key, that you use it for their good, because sometimes predators may also find a way to get that key. So on one side, be careful who you give your keys to, but also on the other side, if somebody does trust you with that key, treat it with the respect it deserves. And another thing I was going to say is I think it's really important that you didn't say, oh, we're going to get rid of your walls, no walls anymore. You said, hey, we're going to still have healthy boundaries, because there are legitimate walls that we need to have in our life to keep out bad things. Not every wall is a bad thing, but there might be a better way to do it. And I think the door is a perfect analogy of, I'm not going to open myself up to just anybody, but when the right person comes in, I do have a door that they can come through. But another kind of wall that came into my mind when we were talking about this is, and I know I've shared this many times, but Lillian Pearl Bridges was talking about walls when you're on your golden path. But sometimes you see a brick wall on your golden path and out in the distance, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to follow my golden path. There's a wall there, I can't keep going. I'm just going to go on this suboptimal path that looks a little easier. But the truth is, if you walk up to that wall and you push through it, what you almost always discover is that it's made of styrofoam.
Yes.
And so just because you think you see a wall doesn't mean the wall is what you think it is. And I think that's always important to remember. And that could be true of any kind of wall. So just a couple other things too, like, so talking about, the removing the wall, I think it's also important to remember that a suboptimal solution is still better than no solution. It's rare, but I've been in some cases where people have removed the safety, whatever, maybe it's a wall, maybe it's something else, but they've removed a safety protocol that I've had that was suboptimal, but they didn't put something in its place. And what happened is I went out into the world, did something stupid, put myself in a stupid position because I didn't have that installed anymore, got injured, and now the wall that's going up is now going to be 10 times thicker. Next time I'm asked to remove it, my subconscious mind is going to say, you tricked me with that last time. So a lot of this is building trust with your subconscious mind or the subconscious mind of whoever you're working with, of saying, we're going to be very careful about removing these walls, and that doesn't mean we're going to leave you defenseless. We're only going to remove it when we've determined there's a better solution we can replace it with. And like I said, I think the door, that analogy just worked on so many levels. And then another one that I think is important too, if we beat ourselves up for having these walls, I know I've shared this one before as well, but there's that story of the guy who, he was walking on a hike, I believe it was a hike, and he got what he thought was a stick on a bush that hit his leg. And he thought, no big deal, right? He barely felt it, kept walking. And the next thing he knew, he was practically paralyzed. He had to get rushed to ER because it was not a stick. It was a snake that had bitten him. Now, it can happen, but it's very, very rare. But the problem was his brain said, oh, I underestimated this threat. And so then what happened is next time he went hiking and a real stick brushed against his leg, he basically went into paralysis and tons of pain. And it started happening every single time. And, obviously with these hypnotic anchors, there are things that we can do to erase this. But I think it's important. Sometimes we beat ourselves up. I shouldn't have this response. I shouldn't have this wall. I shouldn't have this. And, it's not about should or shouldn't. The subconscious mind put that protection in for a good reason. And if you could get inside and talk to it, it's not necessarily, once again, it's not about removing a wall. It's about recalibrating the wall.
Yes.
It's about saying, this, 99% of the time when you feel that feeling, it's a stick. That 1% of the time it is a snake. So what we're going to do is next time we're not going to just ignore it. We'll look down and make sure it's not a snake. But you don't need to paralyze me to get my attention, subconscious mind. You're overestimating the risk just because it happened to have one time and it feels more common than it really is. And then just one other thing too, just on the chemical side, I thought this was interesting. I was watching a thing that talked about, oxytocin is what helps us let down those walls. It helps us feel calm. But if you experience a lot of cortisol, which comes from stress, obviously, it can actually block oxytocin. And a lot of times if your oxytocin is blocked, we'll go around trying, this was, gosh, what's his name, Adam Smith or something? Anyway, it's a guy who talks about the different bonding styles, and he was talking about avoidant personality bonding style. And anyway, he was saying if you have that, your cortisol levels are so high, you're never getting the oxytocin, so you just run around chasing dopamine because it's all you can feel. That's the only feel-good chemical you can get. So anyway, I was just going to say, if you find yourself having a lot of walls, just from a chemical intervention perspective, look and see if there's anything you could do to drop your cortisol levels so that you can actually feel that oxytocin, because it can help a lot.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Lenora.
So many good things. And Holly had mentioned styrofoam walls. Well, apparently I'm going to clear my throat consistently. She had mentioned styrofoam walls. And something that I've also noticed is, especially in myself, or especially when somebody's walking me through a process, I recently got a dog. And so now like a lot of things are making way more sense. There's such a thing as an extinguishing behavior in the behavior that the dog is having. And it's like, ultimately, she was barking her little head off, and then she reaches a peak, and then it goes poof, and it kind of bursts and extinguishes itself. When certain people are walking me through, or at least depending on how deep of a process it is, or how intense it is for me, as I lean into it, it actually gets worse. And I don't know if some practitioners can also speak to this for their clients. That I can speak to this as being somebody who's getting walked through. The intensity of something actually gets a lot worse as we start to go into it. And that can feel very deterring for somebody who, yes, I do think rapport is very, very important, but also helping them understand, at least to me, like, here's a bit about the process, because I had so many questions. So my brain was firing with 1,000 questions along with getting walked through the process, and then just trying to focus on, like, is this normal? Is this not normal? Why is this worse? Why do I suddenly want to vomit? And in that intensity, perhaps letting the client know, or even if you're walking yourself through something, if you find that the intensity of the emotion that you're going through is amplifying, oddly enough, keep leaning in, because I think there is an extinguishing component that it really does hit this intensity, and then it bursts or gently pops, and other things are then revealed from it. The other thing was where for people who experience a very significant shame loop, and I know I've talked a lot about an inner critic for people and voices in their head, and one of them is, or over the years has been, that I will shame myself for simply having the thought. And I didn't even really notice it until people were pointing it out in conversation. And one of my big keys, apparently, is when I look away and I'm talking about something, and then I look back to see if whether I'm validated, or if basically to read if somebody's face thinks that I'm stupid. Like, this is how I perceive it. I will not look at them depending on who it is, and I will just start talking, and then I will look back and I will wait to see what their face looks, to see if I think that they think that I'm stupid. Like, this is how the loop goes. So that was something that I had really been working through, and it was almost as if I would shame myself just by reading their face. Like, this is very, very, very ridiculous levels. But for people who really are constantly criticizing themselves, and I started to think about it, yet again, back to a dog, almost like I was e-collaring myself, like I was shocking myself with my own shame, because that's the loop that I had been perceiving it as. So I found that to be really interesting. So among these things, your clients might also be experiencing X, Y, and Z.
Thank you for sharing that. Mark.
Yeah, something popped up, another squirrel. And I was working many years ago with this young lady. She was very attractive, 16-year-old. We had a really good rapport, but she had social anxiety. And because sometimes walls are necessary to protect us, because she was getting hit on by older guys all the time because she was that pretty. And, and I was just out of the box with all, Dr. David's stuff. And I was thinking, oh, I could spin that out. I could get rid of that. So I said, do you want to get rid of it? Because I can get rid of it for you. And she said, no. And I said, why would you want to hang on to that intense anxiety, fear that makes you run away from older guys that are showing you attention? She goes, it keeps me safe. And I said, I'm not touching that. Okay. I said, you know what? Again, if that's what you have to do to keep yourself safe, I could get rid of it. I could spin it out. I said, I'm not touching that.
Yep.
So, again, sometimes you have to have that rapport to get that, to be able to judge, because we want to get in there. We want to fix stuff. We want to, get them to perceive that wall and bust through it. But sometimes on the rare occasion, you know, you want to leave something in place because it's, it is very functional and it will, and it did protect her, and eventually, she get a little older and, she was fine. But for that time in her life, she needed that wall.
Yes.
So I didn't touch it.
Yep, been there too. Holly.
Helps if I unmute myself. Oh gosh, so many things flying into my head. Thank you for all your comments. First of all, that shock collar shame thing is going to stick in my head forever. I love that analogy. Because, they do talk about like shock collar, you're creating an electronic fence around your property to protect your dog or whatever. I just got thinking, now granted, there might be good reasons that you want to keep your dog safe and don't want them leaving your property, but just in general, how many times in our life did we put up a wall because we stepped out, got a little bit of a zap, and didn't realize that was what was supposed to happen? And if we could get past the zap and let it play out, it turns into something absolutely amazing. But we didn't let it play out. And because at the beginning of the process, it's something unexpected, it's something we haven't experienced before. I mean, like the process of learning to walk, for example, it hurts to learn to walk. You fall down a lot. Not that we all remember it necessarily, but if you stop right there because you say this hurts and you don't keep going, where are you going to get in your life? Now, once again, that's not saying, just because it hurts means you should keep going, use judgment in this. But how many places in our life that keeping ourselves tight, keeping ourselves trapped is actually hurting more than going through that wall and getting that temporary shock, but then getting beyond it and getting whatever the rewards are on the other side. Because, like walls keep good stuff in, but they can also keep good stuff out, even if they keep bad stuff out. So, using judgment on that. And then just this, I don't know why, but this analogy that I heard this week, they were talking about, is it sometimes that when you feel pain, it's like if you go in for a deep tissue massage, if you turn yourself over to the experience, it can be so healing, it can be so helpful. But if you spend the entire process resisting it, it could be one of the most painful things you've experienced in a long time.
Yep.
So how many times is our pain just because of resistance that we don't even need, that if we just surrender the process, it would be the healing that we absolutely need?
Absolutely. More good stuff. Thank you. Anybody else got any ahas, epiphanies to share on walls while we're at it? A lot of great stuff was shared here, and there is the importance of walls or barriers to keep the bad stuff out. Even weather. You think about the things going on around you and in the world and stuff like that. If you think of like weather, when you have a hard rain coming in, it's really nice to have four walls and a roof to get inside of. But it's not always raining. And that's where it's nice for people to feel safe enough to have doors, windows, the ability to get outside the walls for a little bit, breathe in some fresh air, and see what else is out there in that great big scary world. Because that's where the growth happens. The inside of the walls, nice and protected, but we all know about comfort zones. Nice place to stay, but nothing grows there. So I appreciate all comments that is in here. I think we're going to move on to the next topic, and this is another one that we've talked about, but it's been a while, and that's diffuse the bomb. Diffuse the bomb. And no, it's not really in the literal sense of a bomb, but it's a way that I teach my clients and students on preparing for things that could go wrong, especially when dealing with humans in their natural environment. If you know you're going to go to some place and that person is going to be there, and they love to bring up this, or you know that they probably heard about that, or something like that, one of the ways to take care of that before it becomes an issue is this sort of diffuse the bomb before it goes off. And a couple of my military friends taught it as left of bang. You want to take care of the situation left of bang. And for those of you who have never heard that term before, if you pictured a clock, a standard, not a digital clock, a standard clock with arms, and if that bomb is set off to go at 12 o'clock noon, straight up, when do you want to get there? You want to get there and diffuse it as far ahead left of bang as possible. And it goes the same with arguments or misunderstandings or all of the above. Lawyers use this theory all the time. They will sit there if they have a big case coming up. They will, especially if they've got staff, they will sit there and think about what are all the things that the other side can bring up. What arguing points can they bring up? What can we expect? Because the more things that they can rehearse for, the better it is the easier it is for them to defuse the bomb left of bang. And I teach this a lot with clients who have challenging work environments or challenging home environments or dealing with family. One thing I forgot to mention when we got started, those of you that are not on the call, you don't get the privilege of seeing our comments. And Holly just put in one from something that not everybody these days would remember, but I sure do. A little deal from Rocky and Bullwinkle. Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of the hat. Not again.
I legit said, you said Rocky Bullwinkle, and my brain was like, hey, boo-boo.
Hey there, boo-boo. Yeah.
Wrong one.
Wrong one. But in the dealing with humans in their natural environment, when I've got clients that are having social anxiety because they have to go to the family reunion, or they got the rels coming over, or they got to go to work and they got to talk, and they know that there's going to be this one point of topic that they always have to bring up, or that just happened, and they know that everybody's going to want to bring it up and talk about it. You can go there and go, okay, so before anybody brings this up, just so you know, here's what happens. Here's what happened. And we don't need to talk about it anymore. You've diffused the bomb before they got to start getting things into motion. And there's a lot of other ways of using this. Those of you that have had this training before, any comments or things that you would like to share about your experience in handling things by diffusing the bomb? Anybody? I know some of you have gotten pretty good at it. Lenora.
I think having conversations with people who are ultimately wanting to help you achieve an outcome. Like, I know we've talked about so many different topics in this group, and there's a difference between wanting to achieve an outcome of being heard, being understood, versus going after somebody and making them feel shame or guilt. And a lot of Chase Hughes's work is really, really interesting. And I think he has, I actually wrote down some phrases that expose manipulation. I also have them in my life, people that I have to carefully choose my words with. And being able to have a conversation, but then being able to reflect on what you did differently in that conversation can be extremely, extremely helpful. Also, paying attention to how your nervous system reacts during those conversations can also help you build the skill. I think that was, to this day, the most misleading thing I've heard from the marketing standpoint is, you learn these skills just like 1, 2, 3, and you learn them and then you have them, and you learn them and then you have to implement them. You have to practice them. You have to find ways and find your way through. And ultimately, I think it really is very revealing of yourself, because in learning these skills, they're really just words on paper, but until you embody it, until you deal with the things that come up in you about those words or about what you're doing, very, very, very fillery.
Yes.
So, yeah, it doesn't land, but if you pay attention, it will, and you do the work, the actual true work, you will get the shift, you will get the change, and you will diffuse the bomb left of bang. I closed the loop. Love when I do that.
And that's why I bring a number of these topics back up after a while, because even I have had some reminders like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Just like the walls, that I had forgotten about that protocol, and so it's good to have the refreshers. Holly.
So a couple thoughts. The first is I've been watching I can't even remember the name of the podcast, but it was a podcast where he was focusing on, sometimes somebody else is being a jerk and they're bringing something up, and we think about, how can I stop them from being the jerk? How can I diffuse this conversation before they bring it up? But he was talking about the importance of also looking inside ourselves, and saying, what is it about this conversation that causes a bomb to go off in the first place? Why am I even responding to this? Now, granted, there are some battles that I think you've got to choose. If somebody's being disrespected, you don't just sit back and, pretend and, be part of the silent majority, making it look like everybody's ganging up on somebody, or, but if it's a battle that really doesn't matter and you're not going to convince the other person, oftentimes we're reacting to it because of something deep inside ourselves. And it's not always what we expect it to be. So like, for instance, some of you may resonate with this as well, but a lot of people that I know insist that hypnosis is not real, or even worse, insist that hypnosis is a form of devil worship. And so, this is just one example, but, it's like, why am I getting so defensive about this? Why is it that, I have to take this? I'm not going to convince them otherwise. This is a deeply held belief. I'm not working with them, And so a couple things that I had to go deep inside myself is, first of all, why do I delegate my belief about truth? Why do I have to have other people acknowledge something for me to believe it's true? That's a very deep one that I'm working on. But another one is, why do I keep inviting people to be a part of the sensitive parts of my journey when I know they aren't going to understand it or respect it? Because, like, maybe I didn't even bring up the word hypnosis, but, I don't have an obligation to tell them my opinion of hypnosis just because somebody else happened to bring the topic up. I have every right to just stay silent and listen. And so once again, choose your battles. Some battles have to be, but sometimes diffusing the bomb isn't even diffusing them lighting the bomb. Sometimes it's me removing, whatever's inside the bomb so that I literally can't be triggered by it anymore.
Yes.
And something that's been helping a lot with that, if I've tried to find what's underneath, because that was another thing you talked about a lot too, is you've got the surface presenting problem and then you've got what's underneath. And if you can get to what's underneath, it can really help. Obviously, if you could work with somebody, great. But if you can't, there's ChatGPT, the free version. You could say, hey, this is bothering me. Can you help me figure out what's underneath it? And just go back and forth and let ChatGPT ask you questions. And it's amazing. I mean, I'm not saying rely 100% on ChatGPT for everything, because it can be kind of dangerous sometimes too. But for something that simple, I think, worst case scenario, you don't find anything. So at best case scenario, it actually, if you keep pushing with the questions, it can actually be pretty insightful. And then the other thing that keeps coming into my mind is the importance of using the right tool for the job. The number of jobs that I have done in my life using the wrong tool and thought that I made no progress with it, it was a disaster, and I'd given up on the job. And then later somebody showed me the right tool to use, went in and had the job done in 2 seconds, and it was the easiest thing ever.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. So, psychologically, if you have something that you've been working on over and over and over again, maybe you're just not using the right tool. That doesn't mean you can't have success. You just need to keep going until you find the right tool. So anyway.
Yep. Great stuff as always. Thank you, Holly. And there's so many different ways to learn how to, quote unquote, diffuse the bomb. One of the things I teach in my hospitality server class, if you know that the kitchen is running a little behind and you can see that the customers at the table might be getting a little fidgety, diffusing the bomb is walking up and going, thank you for your patience. We had a little setback in the kitchen, and everybody's order came in at the exact same time. So it'll be just a few more minutes. Instead of waiting until they're angry enough to go, hey, where's the food? And so it can be all sorts of little things like that. If you knew that you were supposed to get some certain thing done, and there's a good chance that somebody is getting frustrated because of the time it took before they can say anything, you'll be very proud of me today. I got that project done, and I got this done and that done. Oh, yeah. Shut it down before they get a chance to talk first. So again, diffusing the bomb left to bang. Any other comments before we make an attempt to squeeze number 3 in 5 minutes? Anybody?
I guess I could chime in here a little bit.
Cool.
I recently had a conversation about how I do things here business-wise when people bring in equipment. I had made up a little contract just stating, just clarifying like what was going to expectations, what's going to happen. They're leaving their piece of equipment, and charges that might accrue and so forth. And I stopped doing that. And this is a bomb that I have to learn to diffuse every time somebody comes when they're bringing a piece of equipment, because what's been happening is because of me not being clear with them and taking care of myself, I end up sometimes, I give scant details. Okay, there's a minimum charge and there's so much per hour, and it may be this long or that long, but it's not clear enough. So my diffusing the bomb would be being very clear up front, and being strong as opposed to being weak. Right? I saw that as maybe a weakness where I don't want to say that because I don't know, something to do with some inadequacies or something on my part, right? So it means being frank and honest and open and stating what's going to happen, and and not worrying about coming from fear, like, oh, if I say that, they're not going to want me to fix it, or they won't be willing to pay me for my time or something like that. So I find that this is going to be very valuable, not worrying about what might happen, just stating it and telling people what to expect.
Yes.
This business is kind of funny. It's like when if you have a vintage car and you bring it to a restoration place and people think it's gonna, oh, I have $10,000 to spend on this restoration. I'm like, triple it at least. You
Yeah.
know, there's no estimates when you're
No.
dealing with old stuff, because anything can happen. You can't say, oh, it's going to be $1,000 to do this electrical work or something. You get in there and you find out it's like there's a rat's nest of wires in there, and it's going to lead to more and more and more, right? Um, so I have to be much clearer with people and not worry about what they might think, or that they might not want to do it and there won't be enough business for me. Because what has happened is I have a turntable here now that I have spent 10 hours on. This old German-made Dual table, good table, but it's got some design flaws that have shown up after 40 or 50 years, right? So I ended up taking it on, and I was kind of vague about it. I get into it 5 hours, and I call the guy up and I say, oh, it's going to be more. And he's like, oh, if I knew that, I wouldn't have started. So because I wasn't clear up front and diffused this bomb, now I have a bomb that's the pin is out of it and it's like
Yes.
ready to explode. And now it's like I'm frustrated. I'm angry with myself, and then I'm frustrated because it's not working right. And oh, I'm going to spend even more of my time and not get paid for it. All of that. So I don't know if anybody else has anything in their business where they may need to do this. It's like you got to be clear up front, and you got to be brave, and you got to be courageous, and not like for me, it's like, oh, it'll work out. They'll appreciate what I do. It'll be 3 more hours, and they'll go, oh, sure, fine, I'll pay you. That's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And while I'm working on the equipment, I'm like, oh God, are they really going to want to pay me? Or so you can alleviate. I see a path to alleviating all this BS by just stating up front what's going to happen, what the fees are, and that it's their gamble, not mine. Because
Yes.
I could work on this thing for five or anything for 5 hours, and they have to pay me for my time. I'll apply all of my skills, talents, abilities, experiences, wisdom, but it may not work at the end. But you're going to have to pay me. Are you willing to take this gamble?
Yes.
Your gamble, it's not my gamble. I'm the worker here. I'm applying my skills. So you want to roll the dice or not? And let them know up front so there's no mystery.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my
Oh,
2 cents.
great example. And that, like I've said for decades, what are the four most expensive words in any project?
Oh, while you're at it.
While we're at it, oh man, while we're at it, we'll take any project and devastate the budget and the timeline.
Yeah.
But hopefully, when you're done, all the while we're at it's created an amazing product. Lenora.
I know you wanted to possibly get to your third topic, but I wanted to add this note. Duncan, so I know I got you all know I had a puppy in December and I have now since sent her to what we affectionately or our neighbor referred it to as school. I call it Uncle Tony's or her Airbnb. And he's very, very skilled and he's been at training for dogs for at least some 10 years and very well versed in his skill. Like it just flows right out of him. He's well versed in it. And he had said, this is an idea of what the investment will be. I don't guarantee her progress. I don't guarantee X, Y, and Z. I will tell you every single step of the way where I am. He's like, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it because that's already bit me in the ass over the years. He's like, I'm very clear. If I don't think we can get to what your goal is, I'm going to tell you. And because he was so clear and he was so, he was very, I see you, I understand you guys. And this is also what we're working with. It was almost as if like all our cards were out and all his cards were out. And it felt very helpful to my husband and I, which I think is similar to your work, saying, you know, I can give as much as I'm really, really talented. I know my stuff. I cannot promise that you will get the outcome. I will promise that, my guarantee is that I will communicate effectively to you. Right. And I think going into that helps your clients know, like, it may be really worth your investment. It might really be a big investment, and I can't promise it. So just thought of you.
Thank you.
Everything.
And instead of like holding on to this expectation that they will understand without saying this, like, oh, they'll get it. They'll understand. Like, no. People are living in their own minds, in their own worlds, and they have their own issues and problems. And if you're not clear, they're probably not going to get it. So don't expect them to get it.
Yeah.
Tell them how it's going to be.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle used to, a couple of years ago, he would visit at Easter. And while I was setting the table, this is much younger. When I was much younger, you know, a lot of walking on eggshells, trying to make sure everything was like over the top and like everybody was happy. And he goes, you know what, Lenora? It's your house. It's your rules. It's how I live in my house. It's my house. It's my rules. You don't like it? There's the door. I'm like, well, that's a very good one. And to this day, when I set my table, I think of him.
Yes.
And we're talking like 10 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So your shop, your rules.
Yeah, exactly.
King of the castle.
That's it. That's it. Amen.
And that took us just beyond the top of the hour, which means it's time for us to shift gears. For those of you that are watching live for the first time or watching the recording, we're going to shift it up now, and it's now I get to sit back a little bit. We'll see, because it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a topic or a question. You can even continue with some of the some stuff on the topics we had the first hour. But I let all the people on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And after everybody's answered, if I think there's something I can add to it, that's when I throw in my two centavos. So here we go. Question for episode number 231. We'll see how quickly it goes. Who's got the first question or topic of the second hour? Holly, out of the gate, right on.
Take one of mine from my list. So one of my theme topics I've been thinking about a lot this week, and I'd love to get feedback, ironically, from everybody, is how to take feedback. So this is both good feedback and maybe, I won't call it bad feedback or good feedback. Maybe I'll just say it's like feedback that makes you feel good about yourself, feedback that might be a little bit more challenging to hear. What is the feedback that we should be taking that maybe we struggle not to take, or we struggle to take? What is the feedback that we're taking that we shouldn't be taking? And also, what are things we can do to do this in a more healthy way, to give it more balance?
There's a multi-level question. And Lenora put in a great answer in the comments. Again, for those of you that are not with us live, you don't get to see the comments. So her answer was with a grain of salt. And in Greg's case, maybe margarita style. Yes.
Maybe.
And Lenora's got her hand up for more comments.
I love this, Holly. I just adore you, by the way, Holly. One of my favorite ones, I'm actually going to send it to you in a text because this is one that I came across just a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, man, that's a great one. If you wouldn't ask them for advice, then don't care about their criticism.
That's a good one.
Right.
Oh, that's a good one.
A really good one. And people have shared all sorts of opinions with me very much about my dog. Oh my God. And solicited and unsolicited. And trust me, I don't go to many people for their opinions. I have less fingers on my hand. Whatever you would say, like I go to maybe 2 or 3 people for opinions. And I would recognize what they're lighting up in you. Like, for example, if somebody was your Mother's Day weekend, somebody was telling me their opinion about how I was handling Phoenix, and part of me was trying so hard not to be angry and infuriated and like shaming them. And the other part of me was really trying to stay calm and be understanding. And then it took me about 2 weeks to process. And there was a lot of anger in there. I would say pay attention to what it is and who it comes from in that case, because I do think there are a lot of lessons and a lot of help in people's insights to you and what it is revealing about you. And some people, I know TJ's one of his favorites is like, if a crackhead said this to you on the side of the road, would it bother you? But when they're closer to you, or the longer that they know you, the harder that is. And I'm following that completely. And I would try to pay attention to what it is. Even if somebody's having the best interest, for example, somebody shared something with me last week. They had my best interest, and I knew they had my best interest. That did not stop me from being very angry about it. And it's a battle of like, one part of you knows like there is insight in here, and the other part of you can't even listen to the insight because it's that angry. And to process that, I don't think it should be ignored or stifled. You get to decide how valuable that anger is and what it is revealing to you, not what it means about you, but what does it reveal to you, and what are you might wanting to look at, or might really not want to look at, but now we have to.
Yep. Mark.
I was just thinking of the difference between feedback and criticism.
There.
Feedback is usually solicited, if I, I'm always trying to get feedback from my clients. Was this a good session? Did it help you? Are we moving towards the goals that you stated? Criticism, like I said, is, like Lenora said, everybody has an opinion, and they're all different. They're like noses. That's the PG version.
Yes.
And but criticism is volunteered by other people. It's like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And it's like feedback is appreciated. Criticism is not. Thank you very much.
Very good. I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Anybody else got any input?
I do.
Okay.
This is actually something that you and I, TJ, have spoken of, and I was going to bring it up. It seems like it's kind of related. That recently I was reminded again that, and it was very freeing, that everybody out there has a different experience of who you are, right? I don't know if anybody else had this recognition or can relate to this, but I started thinking about that. I'm like, of course they do, because everybody's different. Everybody has different conditioning, different environments, come from different cultures, right? Everybody has their own filters and their own judgments and all the stuff that comes up. So it was, like I said, it was rather freeing. And this relates to criticism and judgment and so forth. Everybody's going to have an opinion. Everybody's going to have judgment. And it's all going to be different. I mean, rarely, if you talk to numerous people, will you get the same take on how they perceive you, how they think you do certain things, or how you speak, or how you process things. So it's okay. This is kind of cool that, well, none of us really need to be attached to how people perceive us or judgment or anything. It's our choice and how we're going to accept it, right? There's there's some commonality, but not a whole bunch of commonality. Everybody brings different things to the table. I'm like, okay, I can. It just feels better that, yeah, that's them considering me in a certain way, and if I'm not in agreement with it, with that, then that's okay. It's just them, just how they're being. It's like we're in the forest. They're the oak tree. I'm the banana tree or whatever. It's like in the forest, the banana tree doesn't say, "Oh, that oak tree is ugly. I don't like that tree. I don't like how it. I don't like its leaves." And the oak tree doesn't go, "Oh, look at this tree making more bananas. I hate bananas." That doesn't happen. You know. So let people perceive you in the ways that they do, and know that they're all different. And how relative is it anyway? Are they really seeing you for who you are? Right? And it reminds me, like, first, like, I guess much of my life, I'm like, I gave it so much credence that people are saying something and judging and offer me their opinion or something. I would take it on as truth. I'm like, that's not true anymore. It never was true, but I have the realization now that it's not. I don't have to accept anything that anybody says to me more than I want to.
Yes,
You know, my choice.
exactly. Good stuff. Yes, no, I guess maybe so.
What do you have to say about me?
And she's back. Lenore.
Okay, I'm gonna put this. Okay, can you hear me? I'm gonna put the link from Amazon in this. A couple of, I don't know, it had to be like 6 months ago or something like that. I was telling TJ while he was one of our coaching sessions, we were talking about people's opinions. People have everybody's got an opinion. And he's laughing because he knows it's coming. And sometimes the metaphors that he comes up with, as many of you know, are absolutely hilarious. And in this case, he was talking about opinions being buttholes. And I'm telling you, some buttholes, I believe he said, were stinkier than others. So the images that were coming up were hysterical. somewhere between me crying and laughing in trance, some sort of image came up, and he was talking about people giving presents. So, happened to find this bad boy on Amazon. Okay, Holly, are you ready? Can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Oh,
you
cool.
ready? So some people will give you a present. They're like, hey, here's this thought. They don't call it criticism. They might say, hey, I'm caring about you. Or they might say, hey, this is for you. This really is for you. And inside it, let's see what it is.
That's amazing.
Inside it is poop. Or another one that might be inside it, colorful language on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
is a hand. So recognizing that everybody is going to give you an opinion. And this is something where, you know, especially in some of the groups that people say, they'll say, like, I have a fear of being seen. And it's oftentimes, at least to me, it's not a fear of being seen. It's how you interpret being seen. So Mark had said, you know, one of his clients said, like, oh, well, this is protecting me. One of the things that I'm going to walk people through on Saturday is, at least I'm hopeful, is the biggest childhood wounds, but also your gifts in this world. And one of my most activating wounds, I feel like you could all acknowledge, you could all probably shout out the same word collectively, and it'll all exactly be the same word without me even telling you. My big one has always been shame. And I don't have a problem being seen. My fear is always, if I'm seen and then somebody makes me feel bad about that, like, that's the sting for me. So people will always pass you gifts. People are going to share all sorts of gifts with you. When you open them, you have to decide, is it for you? Is it not for you? Does it belong to you? Does it not belong to you? Is it worth your precious energy and your precious time and your precious love? And there are so many things we can think about on a daily basis. Is somebody else's opinion that even in probably 2 years or in 2 months is not gonna freaking matter anyway, because you can look in the rearview mirror and be like, oh wow, those were a lot of opinions that I had, but people gave me back then, and they didn't matter when I was in graduate school, and they didn't matter when I was in undergraduate school, and that didn't matter when I was in high school. Like, if you look in the rearview mirror and you're like, oh, okay, then I don't have to lose this much sleep on it. That can be really helpful. That being said, there are some ones that are worth looking into. Not every single one deserves your very precious time and energy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very much so. Anybody else? Well, I've got a few seconds here. Another thing is, how well is this comment or feedback or input, how well is it going to age? Is it going to matter in a week, month, a year? And like Lenora pointed out, you know, I've always joked that, yes, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one. Some are kept clean, some not so much. Some are just stinky and they just want to blow air your way and mess up your day.
Some are really noisy.
Yes, some are very noisy. Yes, we can have so much fun with this metaphor. But when you realize that even the noisy, stinky ones, once you get out of the room, you don't have to deal with it anymore. It was just them being themselves, humans in their natural environment. And you can take what serves you and turn it into something that ages well. And let the rest of it go. Yeah, but you don't understand. They said blah, 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 blah. And as Lenora pointed out, one of the things I'll ask them, well, if you were walking down the sidewalk and there was a drunk homeless meth head sitting on the curb and they said the same thing to you, how long would it bother you? If it's simply because of the person that it came from, you can analyze it a little bit more as to if it matters that much because of who said it, why did they say it? What was their intention? What have they been going through? What was, maybe they had a bad day and they were just blowing off some steam, and their noisy comment out of their little butthole just happened to be bad enough because you were in the vicinity. You were the closest one for them to blow a little gas at. Lucky you. And Mike, did you want to talk live, or you want me to read your comment? Because it's a good comment.
Yeah. So what I wrote in there is, in my opinion, when people are giving you feedback, one of their filters you should run this through is intent. I guess that kind of mirrors what you just had mentioned. Whether or not it's constructive or not, and all that other stuff. The second part of this is they're giving you information based on their experience map, not
Yes.
yours.
Yes.
And there are so many variables that come into a decision-making process, especially if it's going to be lifelong. Someone else's map doesn't necessarily figure into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I put in there. Thank you.
And thank you for those. Those are two really good points, especially the second one, that they're giving you information based on their experience map, not yours. And they may think that you know everything that they're talking about, and not always. And now Guillermo brought up a question that you guys can all address. What do you do when you give feedback to a family member about a situation and then you find out that the reality was not the way you thought it was? How do you fix it? Who's got an answer for Guillermo? I'll read it again. What do you do when you give feedback to a family member about a situation and then you find out that, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, your understanding of the reality was not exactly how it was? How do you fix it? Holly.
So my first comment would be, it really depends on the specifics. But just some general broad categories is, first of all, if you brought something up and let's say it turns out that you were misunderstanding, I don't know, like say you were wondering why they didn't show up to dinner with you, and you just want to say, hey, you weren't respecting my time. You promised you were going to respect my time from now on. And it turns out that they were in a coma, just as an extreme example. I think the first thing to do is to step in and apologize and to acknowledge their situation. Basically to apologize for your misunderstanding, use the trifecta, use, Echo Talk, 3 magic questions, elicit their criteria and values to make sure that you really are understanding it before you go further, because just because we got an update doesn't mean we might not be missing something else.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, also you need to know what matters to you, what are your non-negotiables, and what consequences will you enact if that's not met. because a boundary only matters if it's clearly communicated and if there are consequences for violating it.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you can't control if they'll take your feedback. You can't control if they're going to respect you. A lot of people are all about walking all over your boundaries and seeing what you'll do. But you have every right to protect your own peace, no matter what that is. If it means, low contact, no contact, if that's what you need to do to protect your peace, it's your right to do it. If sometimes it's protecting your money, sometimes it's protecting your time, whatever it is, know that you have the right to protect yourself. But at the same time, no, that doesn't mean you have to be unreasonable. And it doesn't, I've said it many times before, boundaries are a negotiation. And like I said, if it's a situation where my boundary is you're not going to disrespect my time, but it turns out this really is a legitimate, different situation than what I thought it was because you were in a coma, suddenly this is not about you not respecting my time. And it's about me saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you were in a coma. What can I do to help you as you're recovering from your coma? So I think it is important, once again, to use the trifecta to really drill down and figure out where is the disagreement. Because we might think the disagreement is a very surface level, and where our conflict may be happening might be a completely different conflict than we even realize we're happening. So use the trifecta on them, but also use it on yourself. Really drill down and figure out what is your criteria and your values, so that when you get in these conversations and it turns out it's something different, you can still say, oh, my ultimate value is still being respected. It's just not being respected in the way I thought it would be. So once again, like I said, it really depends on the specifics, but those are the principles that I would use to guide my actions.
Good stuff. Lenora.
I'm going to read it just once more. What do you do when you give feedback to a family member about a situation, then you find out that the reality was not the way you thought it was? How do you fix it? I'm going to do my best to be vaguely specific here. In this case, for me, the tables were actually flipped, and I even took notes during a conversation, very memorable conversation, and I kept the notes in my phone, and just so that I had them, because I can easily get very emotionally overwhelmed. This was a couple of years ago during a fight, and I will lose my focus, and I will go off on side trails, and people can take me off very quickly on a side trail, and gotten better. So Mike, don't worry, I've gotten better, Mike Wilson, because I know we've talked about this, and I had taken notes about it, and the person, a couple of years now have gone by, and the person tried to tell me that what happened in that conversation did not happen. And even when I called them out and I said, oh, I have notes, you said this verbatim, they still swore up and down that it did not happen. Now, depending on, apply as needed in general. You're always remembering that our perception is a perception. The entire experience is running through our filters at that time, and we might be having the intention of wanting to be clear, wanting to be calm, wanting to communicate effectively. And that occurrence of interaction is now going through their filters, and they might be feeling, rather than somebody's coming at them in a caring tone, they might automatically be activated into, they're shaming me, they're fighting against me, they're not listening to me. So that communication is different for them, and it's different for me. So a perception really is only what you have working with at the time, and then you get to run it through your own filters again and again and again as time moves forward, and then you're taking bits and pieces and applying it. So it depends on what at least to me, it would depend on what the topic is and how that relationship is. Are you wanting to just be like, whatever, it's another one in a pile of 1,000 of them with this person, and it's now come to the fact that it's the person and my boundary that I do or do not have, or my tolerance that I do or do not have. This is when we do have to look at the mirror and say, what is this revealing about me? How can I support myself? How can I also do what I can and know where to draw the line? Because there is a very fine balance. And even though your brain might kick in and your shame e-collar might be going off, but you should be doing this, you should be doing that, because that's what we're taught. At the same time, we also then get the ability to learn something new and say, okay, is that necessary? Do I have to shame myself, or can I say, I can care about myself, and I'm going to lovingly find a way that we're not going to touch on this topic again, and that's just how it's going to be with this person, because I've done what I needed to. They might not have done what they needed to on their part to come to that full resolve. And standing up for yourself and caring for yourself and knowing your lines and knowing how you best are supported and how you can communicate effectively is, I think, a very valuable skill, and one that is not, unfortunately, taught in school.
Yeah. Great stuff. Mark.
Yeah, the couple of thoughts, G. Again, why is it so hard for guys to say they were wrong? You know, that's the first question. You know, again, I was wrong. You know, my perception of the situation was so far off. You know, I'm sorry. You know, again, you know, I thought what I did was valid, but you know, I was off base. You know, and you know, can we look past this? You know, just a variation on the validation protocol. You know, it you know, again, I'm as you know, I'm as wrong as often as I'm right. So, but yeah, like I said, there's you know, people will say stuff, you know, in the heat of the moment, and then later on they'll deny it. You know, I always remember my mom telling me in a, you know, it was like I said, you know, I was working I said, I'm my father's son. Like, I can work 80-hour work week. She goes, yeah, but you're not as tough as your old man. And that hurts. And she denied to her dying day that she ever said those words. But the hot poker in the heart, yeah, no, I remembered that. Those were the exact words. And I was like, but yeah, but you got, like I said, you know, if you had a perception of a situation, you know, and you might have tried to give somebody some advice or help somebody, and you were dead wrong. Okay, I was wrong. I mean, it's not that hard to say, you know, and it's just guys get stuck on that, you know, they have to be right, you know. No, you know, the facts are not in evidence, but that doesn't matter. I was still right, you know. The male perspective. But yeah, you know, just say you were wrong. It's okay.
Cool.
All right, move forward.
Thank you. Holly.
So this is going to be very similar to what Mark kind of said. I was just thinking, there's a channel I watch. It's called Cinema Therapy. Sometimes I watch it, and he basically they watch movies and then they talk about the quality of the relationships in real life, if they existed in real life. But one of the things he says regularly is that he has an accountability kink. I just got that phrase stuck in my head. But the whole point behind this idea is sometimes, you know, we're all human. We all misread situations. We all get things wrong from time to time. But owning that instead of becoming defensive about that can sometimes actually make a relationship 1,000 times better than it was before, and can sometimes be more valuable than good advice. Because having somebody knowing that you're safe enough that you're with somebody who's willing to own when they get something wrong can be such a novel experience for us that it can help, give us safety. And maybe, you needed to have that conversation to learn where they're really coming from. So maybe even though it took a weird path and you got it wrong, maybe it still helped you ultimately uncover what you needed to know to be able to help them. So ownership is a big piece, but the other thing that keeps popping into my head is there are so many people who apologize to make themselves feel better. And so when you're going into the situation, you just need to ask yourself, what do they need? I'm going to let them, lead this situation. I've thought a lot about what's the difference between an explanation and an excuse. Often they sound exactly the same. The difference is explanation comes after someone asks for it. Excuse comes before they ask for it. Am I defending myself to tell you why I'm not really as bad as you thought I was? Or do you want to understand what really happened and you ask me for what's going on? And so I'm giving you that additional viewpoint so you can understand what happened. But anyway, so sometimes they may choose that they're not gonna forgive you. You can't control that. That's up to them. They may say, I need space. You give them space, even if your desire is, I want to get in there. I want to fix it so bad. I want to be there and undo everything I did. If they're asking for space, give them what they ask for, not what you think they need. But at the end of the day, if you have a healthy relationship with them, and this is just one piece of a bigger puzzle of a relationship, it may not look like it in the moment, but sometimes the misunderstanding that we have to correct ends up being the best thing that ever happened because of the process we go through that's really raw, really vulnerable, really honest, and proves that we really care and that it's not just about ourselves.
Great stuff. Anybody else got any ahas, epiphanies they want to share? Cool. Well, if not, then you know what that means. We need a new question or topic. Who's got something out of their archives of questions that they've had for how long? Come on, we need something.
It's gonna start the Jeopardy music.
Yeah, right? You're welcome, Guillermo. Thank you for bringing up a question. Got another one, I guess?
Was there another one?
Holly.
I mean, I already asked a question, but I've got others. So
I don't care. We could have somebody ask 7 questions as long as we keep the show going.
Okay, well, the next question I've been pondering a lot this week. I'll give the question, but I'll also give the context. Well, maybe I'll just give the question. What are the traits of a good leader? What makes a good leader?
Ooh, good question. Who's got answers?
I just came across such a great one.
Mark.
Well, I believe that real men and great leaders have mostly the same qualities. They're dominant. That's the first quality, not dominating. It's a sliding scale from dominant means you lead from the front. Dominating means you push from the back. Okay, that's the first quality, and a good leader, he has a vision for where he's going, and he can talk about his vision. Second quality is confidence. Great leaders are very confident. Some of them are charismatic. The opposite end is people that are very insecure. They're very, they're not very confident, and if you're uber confident, you get charismatic, so you can bend other people to your vision. The third quality is humor. Great leaders, have a good sense of humor, and we use humor to diffuse situations, diffuse bombs, TJ. And the opposite end of that spectrum is sarcastic, because humor builds bonds, sarcasm breaks them. They may get laughter, but it's a nervous laughter that the sarcasm be returned on them. And then the fourth quality of a great leader is he's what I call exocentric. We all know what egocentric looks like. How you doing today? How do you like my tie? Um, Egocentric individuals, it's all about them. Exocentric is generally good-hearted people that want to, the only way they judge themselves as successful is by making everyone around them successful. And I got that's a version of what Marcus Aurelius taught, 2,000 years ago. So great leaders are dominant, confident, funny, and warm-hearted. And so are real men. So I aspire to those qualities every day.
Cool. Great answer. Thank you, Mark. Lenora.
I put in leadership I wrote communication, I need to edit it, is communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it themselves. And that one has always stood out to me.
Another great answer. Guillermo. Your mic's not on, Guillermo.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Well, I think based on my experience, a good leadership, what good person who leads the team, he have a lot of courage. He also have a lot of empathy for the team members and understanding how they feel and how you lead them. Also, you have a vision as a leader for them. And I think Mark is expressed that as well. They have integrity, a lot of integrity. Just to be honest and upfront with many of the things that you're going to do. And the people understand that. And I think I said as well, as they have most of the time, so all the times, effective communication. Communicating to everybody what is the target, the objective, when do you want to complete it, how you want to complete it, is a key for all the members so they know where they're going.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Mark.
Yeah, another quality of leadership, like I said, is willing to lead. Leaders leading his group through the caves, and the caves divide. And he looks down both of them as far as he can see, and he says with perfect confidence, "Yeah, we got to go this way." Pointing to one direction, and he's willing to take the responsibility of being wrong. But he's also, willing to take all the backslaps and the attaboy and the greater confidence in his ability to choose correctly. But it took me a long time to realize he doesn't know which way to go.
Yeah.
but he's willing to take the risk. But he doesn't know. It took me many years to realize, but he has to say that with perfect confidence. Yeah, we got to go this way. And because they have faith in the leader, they follow him, whether it's a dead end or, but he's willing to accept the responsibility of being wrong. But he's also, and he gets all the perks and the backslaps and the attaboys when he's right. So then he gets more confidence in his own ability to lead. So but he doesn't know. And that was a big aha moment for me in my life.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Mark. There's a movie, it's been out for quite a while now, called U571, and it's about a German. It's about Americans capturing. They have to capture a German U-boat, and in I don't want to ruin it if you guys are willing, if you want to watch it, but one big part in it is the captain for the Americans dies, and so the second in charge has to take over, and the crew are like, well, what are we going to do? What if this happens? And he goes, I don't know, but we got to do this. And the one of the older guys in the crew, who is basically like third in command, third or fourth, says to the guy that's in charge now, permission to talk to you in private, sir. So, okay, so they go into a private room, and he says, don't ever do that to your crew again, ever. The captain always knows what to do, even if he doesn't. That crew has to know that you know what is going on. Whether you do or not, they have to believe, they have to have the belief that you can lead them. As soon as they lose that, you lose the team. And that really stuck with me and was in alignment with, I believe, with what Mark was saying. Lenora. Did a squirrel run away with your paper? Squirrel's back, but your mic's off.
In case you were missing it, this is no. So one thing, especially with leadership, and I think sometimes my thought process, and I remind myself very often, like the thought that I've had for so long doesn't have to be my only thought. And I will strategically go out and try and think new thoughts to be like, that's totally different. I never even thought that that was possible. I will work at trying to have different thoughts just to remind myself that I could think anything that I want and it doesn't have to be the same stuff on repeat. And especially because how I would define leader or how I would define so many things were defined from such a young age that I never stopped to question the picture that I had or the definition that I had until I started to get in groups where we were starting to really shape our definitions. And Holly, to say, when you said about setting boundaries and defining the words of what respect looks like on both sides, like excellent, absolutely beautiful. Especially when it comes to leadership and recognizing, and I think a lot about people by themselves and the thoughts that they have, because it just is an endless conversation inside my head. And I love when they say, like, there are times where men don't think, but they just like hanging out, like they don't have a thought. Like, this is things that they've shared, and I think that is fascinating because I've never not had a thought. Like, it's always like, what thought should we think next? Oh, let's try this one. Like, it goes for 3-second blip, and then I'm back to thinking something else. All this to say, radically self-forgiving is a phrase that Chase Hughes has said, and it's really stuck with me. Another phrase that is stuck with me is catastrophically successful. And I love when we're pairing like very extreme words together. So radically self-forgiving. So if you stand in the mirror and you think, especially because Guillermo, in my head, you were the one that had asked this. So now this is my thought process in where you are in my head. Like as a father, you get ready in the morning and you think of yourself, you're like, I'm the leader of my family. And sometimes I know when I look in the mirror and I think like, oh, I'm a leader, I hear this like, or like this other version is having another conversation. And I have to rally her. And to be radically self-forgiving of that thought, being like, who told you that? Like, that's so silly that you thought that you weren't. Of course you are. Look at the fun things that you get to do. If this is how you define a leader, look at all the ways that you're a leader in your life. And to notice that. And I think a lot about, I love the one that where Fran had said a couple of weeks ago about self-hypnosis in the mirror, because I know every one of us goes to the mirror in the morning to brush our teeth and wash our face. And I think a lot about spending time in front of the mirror. In case you don't know, I wear makeup. And these are the thoughts that go through my head. How do people talk to themselves when they stand in the mirror? I hope people feel good about it. And I know I spent so many years in front of a mirror feeling like shit. So I really genuinely hope that people are able to look in the mirror and see themselves as a leader, or see themselves as a caring person and a forgiving person and a person who can set boundaries and a person who can care for themselves and a person who loves themselves. I truly hope that people see this on a regular basis every single time they look in the mirror. So that's where my thoughts were. So in the idea where if you're thinking I'm a leader, and then you might hear this background noise that's like, nah, I beg to differ. Be radically self-forgiving of that less than positive voice. I talked about Fran and here she is. Oh my God, let's all go play Lotto.
Yay! Mark.
Yeah. Hi, Fran.
Actually, it's a bit like Beetlejuice, isn't it? Say the word.
The best
Some of
kind.
the demon. Yeah. The other quality, Holly, about leadership is willing to listen to others. People have mentioned communication, get the group together, listen to their opinions, welcome and unwelcome, and be very, not be judgmental, and say, well, thank you for your input. I'll inform you of my decision. So you build consensus. Even the people that disagreed with you, as long as they had a chance to have their say, they're much more likely to buy into your decision.
Yes.
So that's another quality of leadership, is the ability to build consensus with the within the group. And if everybody has their say and the leader decides to go, makes a different decision than the person that, but at least they had their say, so they feel heard, understood. And I think that's a great quality of leadership as well.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, Mark, because one of the things that was pointed out to me that I didn't know was that Abraham Lincoln got a bunch of the men that ran against him to be on his staff. And people were like, do you know what they said about you? And he said, yes. And I don't want a team of people who are all yes men. I want people that will disagree with me, but have the ability to explain their disagreements. These men are all very well spoken and said their disagreements properly. That's why they're on my staff. And it's an ability to humble yourself enough to have people around you that may not always agree with what you're saying, so that you have that privilege of having other opinions, other views of topics, other ways of people thinking, so that you have a very well-rounded approach to the solution that you eventually end up choosing because you are the leader. Does that make sense? Any opinions on? I'm so glad you made it here, Fran.
Well, no does not mean no to an adult. A no means, and to a leader, means give me a good enough reason to change it to yes.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a story. Tell me what you're thinking. We can agree to disagree, but I want to know what it is that built your opinion. Holly.
So many good comments. Just wanted to read what was in the chat, which maybe somebody did earlier, but I just want to read it again. So Lenora had said, leadership is communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it themselves. And Renee put integrity, state control, not easily rattled, adaptability, and ability to develop others. And I'll admit that was selfish because I want to be able to remember those, so I made sure to read them. And then just also, I had a random thought on this topic. I'd never thought of this before, but because, following and leading go hand in hand. But for those who've seen the Caine Mutiny, there's a really good speech where he gives a talk about, following and working in tandem with your leader and who the leader can be when the people who are following do a good job of following.
Cool. And Fran.
I apologize for being off topic because I'm so late. My apologies. But on no is only no at this moment. Sometimes it's the time for planting seeds for things that are going to grow later. And people maybe need a bit of time to get used to it, or it's not quite the right time for it, or certain things need to happen before the no can become a yes. So yeah, don't take no's too seriously.
No. Because I'm so cereal. But I always tell people, if you got to be cereal, at least be Fruit Loops or Count Chocula. At least then you get chalky milk when you're done. Any other final ahas, opinions, comments, downloads before we call it an evening? Lenora.
I was just going to share that, Fran, I mentioned about Saturday on here for your lovely group.
You want to give some more details or stuff for people that may want to?
The lovely, magical Fran is an amazing host.
Fran, you want to share what's going on?
Well, thank you so much, Lenora. Lenora has agreed to get up at silly o'clock and share her wisdom with the hypnosis group of Australian hypnotists, well, actually international ones again. So thank you so much, Lenora. I really, really appreciate this enormously.
I love how you say it. It's so beautiful and graceful when it comes out of your mouth. It sounds like twisted something coming out of my mouth, but you say it so radiantly. I love it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come and play with us.
I'm so excited. Yay.
And thank you, Fran, for joining us early in the morning while we're closing out our evening. On your way to work while we're on our way to bed. And that took us right to the top of the gotta go time. Man, time flies when with you guys. I appreciate you all so much. What great topics, and uh, I hope that everybody got a little something out of it. If not, we got it recorded. You can go back and watch the recording as often as you want. And for those of you out in YouTube, I get the privilege once again to say, love you, Mom. I love all the rest of you as well. Thanks for showing up one more time to give us episode 231. We're just going to keep rolling them along and as long as we can. So thank you for being part of it. Hope to see your beautiful shiny faces back here in 7 awesome days. Please go out and show the world how flippin' awesome you guys are. Because I adore all of you. And I will see you here soonly. Till then, bye.
Amazing. Goodbye,
Thank you,
everybody. Appreciate y'all.
everyone. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
TJ.
Night all.
Thank you.